We're here representing the 511th Parachute Infantry, and so what I have laid out here is just a basic loadout of what a soldier would carry, from the rifle to the cartridge belt. In the Pacific, since the 511th was in the Pacific, they carried typically 2 canteens. The ones that you see with the aluminum top are World War I style canteens, and then they went to the black plastic Bakelite. In the Pacific, they also carried a jungle first aid kit, which had anti-malaria tablets, also like insect repellent. Underneath that is the standard first aid kit. Got a couple grenades here. Early war, they were yellow. Yellow just meant they were high explosive. And then mid-war, they started painting them green, and then they started manufacturing them green late war as well. And then I got a couple rations laid out. C rations typically came in a 2-can set. So there was the meat ration. Most of them were meat and beans. There was also a vegetable meat hash, but they are all pretty much the same. And then there was a bread unit that had crackers in it, that had candy, cigarettes. They stopped putting the cigarettes in the cans in the bread ration because they started making the other stuff in the cans taste bad. And then they switched to the K rations, there was a breakfast, a dinner, which was lunch, and then the supper. And so there was an outer cardboard container and then a waxed container inside for waterproofing. And inside that was typically, if it was breakfast, it was like a hash or eggs, and then it came with a pack of 4 cigarettes, toilet paper, some type of cracker or bread type unit in there, some matches, a spoon to eat out of the can with, and they also came with some type of candy. I think there's caramels in this one, and then a drink powder. And so the breakfast one would have coffee, and then lemon powder was also pretty popular, and then there was also a chocolate. And some guys like to mix the chocolate and the coffee together to make themselves a treat. And then I've got a D-ration bar, which was like the emergency ration, which was developed for emergency situations. It was a chocolate bar. It didn't really taste all that great, but it packed in a lot of calories in it. And so you had that in case of emergencies. And I've also got an original M&M tube. So when you see those M&Ms today, you see the minis in the tube. It's not technically a new thing. That's how they first came out. Oh. And they're known as the candy that melts in your mouth, not in your hands. And originally they were not colorful like they are today. They were just like a grayish blue color. They didn't add the color until a couple decades later. And then some personal items I got here. A sewing kit, in case your uniform ripped in the field, you had to be able to repair it if you were sewing on patches for a dance, something like that. Some personal hygiene items, shaving kit, soap, toothbrush, a mirror, some letters from home over there, and most all that would go in the musette bag. Officers in the infantry carry musette bags, but the airborne primarily used the musette bag because it was easier. And then I've got a couple Japanese capture items here. Type 98 officers Shin Gunto sword, which was basically a shortened samurai sword. Some of the officers, if they came from a family that had like an ancestral blade that was passed down from generations to generations, they would carry those off into war. And then some of these, a lot of them were also just manufactured for the war effort itself. And then the blue tassel, blue and brown, represented that it would be from like a field officer, so like a lieutenant in the American military. All right, so this is the M1 Garand, or the Garand, or the M1 rifle. And so the Americans really had the advantage as far as firepower goes for the individual soldier during the World War II. So this would hold 8 shots of 30-06, and it fired as fast as you could pull the trigger. Whereas the Japanese or the Germans carried the bolt-action rifles, which held 5 shots. You had to manually manipulate the action every time you wanted to fire. And this was was the GI's best friend. He used it through World War II, used it into Korea, and even shipped some over to the South Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. And I think you even see some of them being captured in the Middle East today.